Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Any of you brothers that have SUV or big cars and you plan to attend, please come and let us know so we can kind of carpool or arrange some brothers to go together. So if any one of you has a big car or SUV and you plan to attend, please come talk to us. Jazakumullah khair.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Last week we spoke about how the Jews of Israel declared statehood in 1948, and after that announcement and after that declaration, the Arab countries and a number of volunteer soldiers also from the Arab lands sent in their forces to try to reclaim the land back for the Arabs. But we spoke about how they were unsuccessful in doing so. So the Arab countries, Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, they sent in armies to try to take the land back from the Jews. And also a number of soldiers under the banner of Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, the Muslim Brotherhood, they came in also from different countries. But at the end of the day, they were unable to reclaim the land of Palestine from the Jews. So the state of Israel was officially established. This is in 1948. The state of Israel was officially established, and the Arabs then had to absorb this shock. This is a whole new era now, right? The Jews now have an official state that is recognized by countries around the world. The United States was actually the first country to recognize the state of Israel. Just 11 minutes after it was announced, the United States gave its recognition, and European countries gave their recognition as well. So now the state of Israel was officially established, and the Arabs of that land had to adapt to this new reality. It really was a new era for the Holy Land. And one of the ways that the Palestinians coped with this new situation is that they tried to organize themselves into different groups. So many different parties and brigades and factions were formed with the intention of trying to get the land of Palestine back, right? Some of these organizations were political organizations. Some of them actually tried to arm themselves, right? So there were so many different organizations that were formed by the Palestinians in the aftermath of the declaration of the Jews forming their state of Israel, that it is said that every Palestinian became a member of two organizations. There were so many organizations, so every Palestinian became a member of two organizations, right? So many different parties and organizations were formed in Palestine after the establishment of the state of Israel, and their goal, their objective was to formulate strategies to reclaim this land. And of course, the displacement of Palestinians continued, especially after the establishment of the state of Israel. The displacement of Palestinians continued. The Jews, now they're building their cities, and they're building their cities upon Palestinian villages. So how is that possible? The only way that's possible is to kick the Palestinians out of their land, and the Jews would build their cities and their villages and their settlements upon that land that they expelled these Palestinians from, right? So many of these Palestinians, they had to leave Palestine. right? A lot of them migrated to Jordan, and many of them also migrated to countries in the Khalij, in the Gulf, right? So a lot of them had to leave Palestine because of this Jewish presence and the settlements that they started to make after they declared the statehood of Israel. As for Al-Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, right, who was perhaps the most well-respected figure in Palestine, and he had a lot of supporters, right? He still remained loyal and steadfast, and he still wanted to figure out a way to reclaim Palestine, but he really wasn't able to do anything. All of the Arab states basically abandoned the cause by this point, right? All of the neighboring Arab countries, they abandoned the cause and they started negotiating with Israel individually, right? So Al-Hajj Amin al-Husseini, even though he wanted to do something, really he was unable to do anything at this point, right? And because he was unable to do anything, eventually his supporters also started to dwindle, right? And he lost the influence that he once had. In December of 1949, there was a conference that was held in Ariha, in Jericho. And the Palestinians who supported Jordan, many of the Palestinians, they had migrated to Jordan and they had resettled in Jordan. So many of those Palestinians who had settled in Jordan, they pledged their allegiance to King Abdullah ibn Hussein as the king of Jordan and Palestine. So he was declared and he was given allegiance as the king of Jordan and Palestine. And what that means, king of Jordan and Palestine, it means that what remained of Palestine, the little part of Palestine that the Jews did not take over up to that point, that was basically annexed to Jordan. That part of Palestine became part of Jordan, right? And King Abdullah ibn Hussein, he was given allegiance by the people as the king of Jordan and Palestine. And what we mean by Palestine is the part of Palestine that remained out of Jewish hands up to this point. And that was Al-Daffa Al-Gharbiyya, the West Bank. The West Bank was annexed basically to Jordan. Then in December of 1949, the United Nations issued resolution number 194. And this resolution affirmed the right of refugees, Palestinian refugees, to return to Palestine. Right? So a lot of those refugees who were expelled from Palestine by the Jews, they settled in Jordan, they settled in Gulf states, right? This UN resolution in December of 1949 gave them the right to return to their homeland, gave them the right to return to Palestine. So any Palestinian wishing to return to Palestine had the right to do so, but it would be under Jewish rule. That you can return to Palestine, but you will be under the laws of the Jews, the laws of the state of Israel, right? So the Palestinians were given this choice. You can return, but you're going to be under the rule of the Jews. And those who did not wish to return, it was said to those Palestinian refugees who did not want to return that they would be compensated financially, that a certain sum of money would be given to you in return of you relinquishing your right to return to Palestine. Right? You will lose your right to return to Palestine if you accept this money. So two choices. You can return to Palestine under Jewish rule, or you can relinquish your right to return to Palestine and take this amount of money instead. So of course the Palestinian people, they rejected this idea, this notion. And they did not accept any financial compensation to relinquish their right to their land, right? Because this is like selling their identity, right? Like selling their homeland. How can you do that, right? They considered this a great betrayal. Like if someone is willing to take money in order to give up their rights to their homeland, then what kind of a person is this? What kind of a person is this? So they refused to do that, alhamdulillah, right? So arrangements were made, of course, to annex the West Bank, Al-Daffa Al-Gharbiyya, to Jordan, this became part of Jordan. And it was officially announced in April of 1950 that Al-Dhaffa Al-Gharbiyya, the West Bank, is officially part of Jordan. This was announced in 1950. So the Palestinians, they did still have a piece of land, even though now it was considered, it was not independent Palestinian land, rather it became part of Jordan. Also Gaza. Gaza remained under the administration of Egypt, right? And Gaza was very densely populated, right? Even though the land of Gaza, it's not very big, right? Area-wise, it's only a small percentage of Palestine, but population-wise, it's very, very densely populated, right? So Egypt still had control of Gaza at that time, and it announced that it would continue to administer and control Gaza. So the West Bank was annexed to Jordan, and Gaza was under the administration of Egypt, and the rest of Palestine was the state of Israel, right? So this was the situation in 1950. On May 25th, 1950, the United States and France and Britain, so these are three of the most powerful countries in the world at that time, the US, Britain, and France, they issued a declaration, right? A cooperative declaration, these three countries. And they committed in this declaration to protect Israel, that Israel is under our protection, the United States, Britain, and France. And they stated that they would punish anyone who violates the truce, and they made sure that they declared that anyone who arms the Palestinians, anyone who provides weaponry or artillery to the Palestinians will be severely punished. Right? So this was a declaration made by the United States, France, and Britain in 1950. That Israel is under our protection, and anyone who provides weapons to the Palestinians, this person will be punished. Right? So because of this, arms and weaponry was stopped from reaching the hands of the Palestinians. But as for Israel, they were getting all the weapons and all the support, and their military continued to get stronger and stronger with the support of the Western nations, especially the United States and countries of Europe as well. Then on July 5th of that same year, July 5th of 1950, Israel announced that any Jew who lives anywhere in the world, whether you live in the United States or you live in Europe or you live in wherever you live, any Jew living anywhere in the world can come into the state of Israel and will immediately be granted citizenship. You're a citizen of Israel if you're a Jew, right? Because they wanted to encourage the Jews to come and settle in this land. So this was announced on July 5th, 1950. And this is just a little over 2 years into the statehood of Israel. Israel, they announced their statehood on May 14th, 1948. So July 5th, 1950, they say that any Jew anywhere in the world can come into Israel and be granted Israeli citizenship. Now during this period, Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, the Muslim Brotherhood, they became active again in Egypt. And they started intensifying their operations against the British presence in the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal, it's a very, very important canal for trade, right? A very important location. So the British, they had control of the Suez Canal. So Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, they didn't like this. Why should the British have control of the Suez Canal, which is in Egypt, right? So the Muslim Brotherhood started planning how to take control of the Suez Canal and expel the British. And these operations that were carried out by Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, the Muslim Brotherhood, over a period of about 4 years, right? Starting from 1950, for about 4 years, the operations carried out by Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun eventually led to the end of the monarchy in Egypt. Egypt up to that time was ruled by a king, right? But these operations and these actions, spearheaded by Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, eventually led to the end of the Egyptian monarchy and the rise of a very well-known figure by the name of Jamal Abdel Nasser. So during this period, the military officer, the Egyptian military officer, a man named Abdul Mun'im Abdul Rauf, he directed himself and the soldiers under him into Gaza. And remember, Gaza, it was still under Egyptian administration. And he and his troop actually began training large numbers of Palestinians, training them, giving them military training to prepare for jihad against the Jews once again, to try to take back Palestine. So Abdul Mun'im Abdul Rauf, an Egyptian military officer, he started training these Palestinians. In July, the revolution of Egypt took place. The revolution of Egypt took place, and the monarchy of Egypt was officially abolished by this time. Right? The revolution was known as the July Revolution. And after this revolution, the monarchy of Egypt was abolished. And rule in Egypt was taken over by the military. Right? And this is in 1952, and this was led by the General Muhammad Najib. Muhammad Najib had very close ties to Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun. He had very close ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood supported this military revolution against the monarchy. And one of the leaders of this revolution was also Jamal Abdel Nasser. Jamal Abdel Nasser was also one of the figureheads in this revolution. Later on, Jamal Abdel Nasser managed to sideline the General Muhammad Najib. And Jamal Abdel Nasser started to gain more power. But still his relationship, the relationship he had with Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, up to this point it still remained strong. Right? He still had support of Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun. Now during this period of time, there were many attempts to find some formula for peace in the Middle East, right? So the UN and different countries, they're trying to figure out some type of a plan to bring peace to the Middle East, right? One of the first of these initiatives was the Norwegian peace plan, right? This was a plan that was aimed at bringing peace into the region. But the Palestinian resistance, they continue to reject all of this. No, we're not going to concede even 1 inch of our land to these Jews. Right? They rejected all of these proposals. So in 1953, jihad began again. Right? The Palestinians, they started to attack again, trying to get back their land. So they attacked a bus, a Jewish bus, and this was near the village of Bir Saba', and 13 Israelis were killed in this attack. So Israel then began to realize that the Palestinians, they still had this spirit of resistance and they still had this spirit of jihad in them, right? So they were prompted to even put more pressure on the Palestinians to displace them and to oppress them and to get rid of them. The Qubayya massacre occurred in October of 1953, where 67 Palestinians were martyred, and the Jews demolished, in addition to that, 34 Palestinian houses. This was the Qubayya massacre of 1953, right? So, this fighting is still going on. Right? And the Palestinians are not willing to concede their land to the Jews. And this is over 3 years after the official establishment of the State of Israel. Right? So the Palestinians, they're not accepting this. They're not accepting that this land was stolen from them. So these fights continue to go on over the years. One of the UN representatives, a man named Joseph Johnson, he tried to come up with a plan for permanent peace in the region. Right? Another plan. So many plans that they proposed, but all of these plans were rejected. So this plan was the Johnson plan, it was also rejected, and the operations in Palestine continued. Then in December of 1954, Jamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, he launched a huge crackdown on Ikhwan al-Muslimun in Egypt. Look, Ikhwan al-Muslimun helped him to get into power. And now that he has gained power, now he's cracking down on al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun. Right? So Jamal Abdel Nasser, he launched a big crackdown on al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun in Egypt. And it is said that he arrested 18,000 members in one day. In one day. This was an operation that Jamal Abdel Nasser carried out, arresting 18,000 of them in one day. So after this, Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun became very subdued because of the force of Jamal Abdel Nasser upon them. So at this time, the operations in Gaza and the operations even in Egypt against the British, these operations stopped at this time. And secular movements and leftist movements started to gain a lot of strength, right? Secular movements started to become strong. And of course, peace initiatives continued to be proposed, but the resistance and the Arab states rejected all of these peace proposals. And this led to even more pressure from Israel. Israel is saying, look, none of these peace proposals are working, and the Palestinians are still a threat to us. So if they're not going to accept these peace proposals, then we need to do more to oppress them and to displace them and to get rid of them. So in 1955, the Gaza massacre occurred, right? The massacre that's going on in Gaza right now, it's not the first Gaza massacre, right? The Gaza massacre of 1955 occurred in February of 1955, in which a number of Muslims were martyred in Gaza, rahmatullahi alayhim. Right? Following this massacre, there were a number of new proposals for peace. There was the Dulles peace plan, the Aid peace plan. There were so many different peace plans that were proposed and introduced. But the Arab states and also the Palestinian people, they felt that these plans were very one-sided and they were not fair to the Palestinian people, so they did not accept any of these plans. They rejected all of these plans. So while all of this was going on, Jamal Abdel Nasser, he continued to become more powerful in Egypt. And in 1956, Jamal Abdel Nasser announced the nationalization of the Suez Canal. Up to this point, the Suez Canal, very, very important canal. Right? Even today, it's very important. The Suez Canal, at that point, it was managed by a British company. It was managed by the British. And all of the profits that came in through that canal went to the British. So Jamal Abdel Nasser said, why? This is our land. This is our canal. Why should the British be the ones who are benefiting from it? So he declared the nationalization of the Suez Canal. That is, it's going to be owned by Egypt. This canal is going to be owned by Egypt, and all of the profits that come through this canal are for Egypt. So he announced that this company that controls the Suez Canal is now an Egyptian company, right? A national company, and it's part of Egypt now. It is officially part of the Egyptian government. And this, of course, what do you think? What do you think the British thought about this? This led to a massive, huge crisis between England and Egypt. This led to a huge crisis between England and Egypt. And inshallah, we'll talk more about that next week. Bi'idhnillah. Jazakumullahu khaira. Wa barakallahu feekum. Wallahu a'lam. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.